Cool. Oops. And Sandra, if you can help, uh, there's if there's any person in the waiting list or waiting room, I think you can admit them in also. I'll make Ricky the co-host for this. Okay. All right, sounds good. Everyone, I will post a link, sign in link right here. So if you guys want to sign in, that will help us in uh, keeping track of our participants list. All right. I get you. Cool. All right, I'm just gonna wait for about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then I'll just start the meeting right away. Okay, just hold on tight. Tomorrow is Veteran Day, right? Ah, okay. I think so, right? Can anyone confirm me on this? Or maybe I'm wrong.
You're right.
I see. Yeah, I think we don't have class tomorrow. For anyone who's still having class tomorrow or having professor sending out quiz tomorrow. I have a quiz tomorrow too. Due date tomorrow. It's supposed to be an off day, but yeah.
You guys should enjoy the holidays when you guys have it.
Yeah, and then I don't understand why. Like some professor, they make us do the quiz on a Veteran Day, and yeah, I was reading some people were just complaining about how they are like they're supposed to get their off day, or they're supposed to spend time with their family because they have a veteran in their family, and they have to spend their time doing the quiz or even a test. So that's tough. All right, everyone. I will just get started now. And just so you guys know, I just want to ask for your consent to record this meeting. So Jackson, Ramona, or Hubert, can you guys all confirm that we are allowed to record this meeting?
Yep.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So let's start it. I'm gonna share the screen right here. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tuan, and here with me are 3 of our guests, our really experienced guests in the data analytics, data science field. And today we're going to have a panel discussions on um, the overall what the field is about. How are we going? How can one go into this field? Because I know this is a really new field to our college, and I don't think we even have our major on data science or any of that. I know that we have a minor in data science, but yeah, currently we don't have anything like that. So let's just get started and get to know 3 of our guests. So I will introduce the guests here. So like as I said before, we have. Oh well, before we go into that, the purpose of the meeting is about I'm gonna ask a series of questions, and the purpose is just to educate yourself on the data science field, and get to know what a data scientist or data analyst do on their daily basics, and get their advices on how to be successful, how to get into the field. And lastly, what is the vision, or what kind of path are we going forward to in the future? So with that, I know that the numbers here are kind of messed up, but I think I convert into a PowerPoint, and that's why I go from Google Slide to PowerPoint. So don't worry about that. So let's just start to our guests. Let's start with Hubert first, and with that, Ramona and Jackson's later.
Yeah, sounds good. Tuan, thank you for inviting me on this panel. My name is Hubert. I've been working in the analytics field for about 6 years now. Currently work as a data analyst at Enjoy Technology. Enjoy is a company in the Silicon Valley based in the last mile delivery space. And I also work currently as the founder of learnanalytics.org, and we do podcasts on data. So, yeah.
Nice. Let's go to Ramona.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Really nice to meet you. Like, I don't know if this is a necessary thing, but feel free to like switch on your videos. I usually find it very easy to look at people. If you don't want to, it's completely fine as well. My name is Ramona Arora, and I'm currently working as a BI analyst at Touch of Modern. It's an e-commerce company. I'm really passionate about data, and I'm really grateful to be in this panel. But apart from working at Touch of Modern, I'm also leading the San Francisco chapter of Products by Women. So it's a community where women from all over the world can connect and talk about everything that they're going through, but at the same time, get mentorships and jobs beyond borders. I'm also the ambassador for Own Trail, which is an organization where you can go and, just connect with other females that are going through the same journey as you, or females that you can relate to. But essentially, the idea is to reflect on your journey. I recently started working on Solo Wave, which is something that I'm doing for emphasizing on self-exploration and solo traveling, specifically for females. I feel like, even if you're trying to enter the data space, it's an intimidating space. So if you're not confident, it really gets to you. So that's the idea of Solo Wave. So always happy to connect and really excited for this panel.
Cool. And let's move over to Jackson's.
Hey guys, I'm a data scientist at West Coast University. I work on cool projects that focuses around education as well as marketing. I craft machine learning models around how to better students' retention scores. I put together clustering models to market effectively to certain personas and segmentations within the market. But I've been within data science analytics for the past 5-6 years as well. And from time to time, I help Hubert with some of his Learn Analytics projects. We just want to see the data population grow. And you guys are in the right place today to learn about data. And yeah, if there's anything from questions perspective you want to ask us, please shoot and let us know.
All right, thank you so much. And I think as Jackson's and Ramona stated before, if you guys have any questions, any concern, or anything you guys want to ask, about what data, or even any question would be welcome to ask. All right. So with that, I want to go into the topic that we're going to ask today, which is about data science and data analytics. So let's just start with the first questions. What is data science, and what is data analytics for you? I think anyone can answer the questions right now because I think we are in the panel.
Yeah, I can answer it. I'll let Jackson speak to the data science part. I can speak more to the data analytics. So I think the analytics is really, there's a lot of data, right? But it's really making sense of the data to make informative decisions, right? So that's how I see analytics. And from my approach to data science is just more of the same driving value from the data, but more of like statistics and machine learning approach. But I'll let the rest of the panel talk to.
Yeah, I guess I agree with what Hubert said. Like, I feel like a lot of the times people confuse data with just looking at charts randomly and just, just like, oh, this makes sense with this. But I guess it's a lot about digging into it. That's what makes it interesting for me personally. It's just, you have that investigative power when you're looking through data. You're really trying to analyze certain problems, and sometimes you end up analyzing or figuring out very relatable problems in the business as well. And it's more to do with, knowing, I think the broader version would be getting into data science if you want to be more experienced with building machine learning algorithms, which again, Jackson would know more, so I'm going to let him talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, data across data analytics and data science, the word data essentially means information, right? How can you use information across businesses to make them money or save them money? And so that's really the baseline of what data really is used for within Google, Apple. How can you use information, data, to make them money, save them money? And from a data science perspective, what does the science part look like? You're really running a bunch of experiments and making sure that what you're building out is robust and can be reproduced across like multiple models, so to speak. Yeah, I think that's my take on the whole realm of data science.
I see. And I think, of course, it has to do a lot with data, right? And I think my next question to you is, when you are working with all of these data, is it what kind of amount of data are we talking about? Like, for example, if you guys are working on a project or just simple projects, what kind of data would would be talking about here? Is that, how do you track the data? So anyone want to take on this?
What do you mean by like tracking the data? Like what?
Oh, so I think more about how much data are we dealing with here, right? Because I think that analyzing all the trends and all the trends will take a lot of time, or even that will take a lot of amount of data to analyze it. So how big of data we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I laugh at this question because I think our, like, as a data analyst or even data scientist, our favorite answer is it depends. It's always going to depend, right? Like all of you in the audience right now, you guys are going to work for different companies in the following months or whenever you graduate. It's just going to depend. Some companies will have like a lot of data, and some companies might not even have enough data to answer the business question that you're looking to solve. And so a challenge for us is always, do we have the data available to solve the problem? And if we don't, how can we go about getting that data? Like, what's it going to cost us? And so there's always something called in-house data, which is what the company has. And then there's always something called sourcing that data from other third-party vendors, so to speak. Yeah, you guys have anything else to add?
Yeah, adding to that thought, like that's the same along the lines. I think it depends on the company you're working at, right? There's certain things like being a data analyst or data scientist. There's a big piece that people don't notice about is actually the domain knowledge. And the domain knowledge about, maybe you work for in marketing, right? And you look at marketing analytics, right? That's very different from working at a company that's more in logistics, right? And supply chain. So like the amount of data is actually very different, and data that you look at is very different. So like, for example, logistics, right? You might look at, I'll just like easy example, right? Amazon, they would look at their deliveries, right? Just imagine how many like transactions or how many deliveries they get every day, right? Per customer. So like how big data sets that they have, like that's very massive, right? But same, like marketing can be crazy amount too, right? How many amount of clicks, impressions, right? You're on Facebook or you're on Google, right? But like you need to have a lot of actually business domain knowledge to be a good analyst in that space. So.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I think to just add to Hubert's point, because it's very true. Like, I mean, it so depends on the company and the industry as well. So, like, for example, I worked in an insurtech company as a product analyst. So my initiatives are more related to the experiments that we want to test out. But if I go look at their, like if I look at their user base, the data isn't as much compared to now I'm working at an e-commerce company where, people buy orders. It's a lot of data compared to what I saw in insurance space, because that's like, insurance is such a separate industry and might not accommodate that much data as much as an e-commerce company does. It's the same, but if you look at billings, if you're someone who's working as a financial analyst, you're working with so many like transactions and like billings data, which is always a lot in any company. So it really depends, even as the analyst that you're working as, but also the industry and the company. So yeah. Sometimes it will take like 15 minutes for it to load if you're depending on the database you're using. So that's also something that companies are doing at the moment, is like upskilling or moving to different forms of database systems, because they're not able to pass that data quickly. And as an analyst, that matters. Like, you don't have to sit with a query for 15 minutes. Like, now times are changing. They do want the answers in like seconds. So it really depends.
I see. And okay. I mean, my next question to you is, how do you? Because of course we come from different background, right? So, what kind of? How did you get your first jobs? Let's just start with Hubert.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, so my background originally was in finance, so I really like numbers to begin with. But from a finance approach, a lot of it is really looking at financial data, right? But I wanted to go deeper because data is everywhere, and data can be applied to almost anything to make better decisions, right? So I went back to do graduate school in analytics. Then I sort of worked as a business analyst in my first role in the staffing and recruiting space. So I think that's a fairly untraditional route, actually, with looking at it. But within that analytics space, it's very interesting as well, because they want to make sure how to make recruiting the most efficient way, right? So you can just imagine one common problem is when recruiters call, right? How many calls are they doing to make a good actual conversion, right? To help people and recruit people, right? Or are a lot of their efforts getting wasted, right? So like even that's a business problem in recruiting, right? So like that's the cool thing I think about data. It's like you can go into many different spaces, and then the problems look different and the data looks different, and also your stakeholders, right? So yeah, just give you a good example there.
I guess. Okay, I can go next. So I have a very funny story, and I think like computer science students would find it funny because it's about me getting into computer science. So I did my undergrad back in India in computer science. I never really understood the fascination of sitting behind a computer and being happy, apart from actually liking SQL. And I think that's where the journey really started. Is I got placed at a French bank for a year as a database associate. So I was working a lot with like, okay, how is the data stored in a database? How does the schema look?
Um,
I
I
think
think,
she froze up.
yeah, I think there's some technical difficulty over that. Okay. Well, I think she got to connect back. Um, oh, there she is. Ramona, I think we didn't hear you for the last 10 seconds, I think.
Oh, where did I stop? I'm so sorry.
Let's see. So you would, yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
You said you love SQL, and then that's where you.
Oh, wow, I missed that whole part. Okay. That makes sense. I was just like wondering why you're smiling. I said the story is that
That's fine.
funny. Okay, so I worked as a database associate at a French bank for a year, and that's where I learned a lot about the DBA tasks. But I just wanted to do more than that. I really liked being at the forefront of things, but at the same time, I really wanted to learn how to analyze data. At that point, I think data analytics and business analytics in general was like really booming. So I moved to the US to do my course, and I actually really ended up liking it. And I think this is where I realized like I ended up liking it is through the projects. So I feel like even before you get a job, it's about that first project that you're doing with all your head and heart together, because if you can talk about a project with like that much intensity in your interviews, that's what really ends up getting you a job. I think for me, it was really about that one capstone project that I did. I ended up taking leadership in that project. I really tried my best to understand it. I might not have done it the best now that I look at it, but it really matters how inclined are you to learn a subject, because when you're interviewing, that's all you have is to talk about it. So that's how I really got the product analyst job, and a lot of LinkedIn networking. So I always vouch for that. But that's all.
For me, I probably was 12 or 13 when I first got into fantasy basketball. Like I just loved statistics. I love sports. And for some of you, maybe you love YouTube, maybe you love certain things. And to Ramona's point, if you're ever curious if data is for you, play with some of the data within like an interest of yours and see if it's something you enjoy like doing. Like ask yourself questions: who is the highest scoring basketball player for these past 5 years? Who is the leading streamer on YouTube? And think about those questions and see if data is something for you where you can use it to answer questions that you've always been curious about. And data is a field about curiosity, questions, solving problems. And I think that's how I fell in love with data in the first place. I didn't take school seriously. I graduated with a 2.98. And so I came out of college just working a entry-level analyst role. But for me, I still loved the concept of solving problems. Like that was really fun for me. And so I went back to school, got my master's in data science, graduated with a 3.9 this time. So like a whole grade much higher, because I was a little bit more serious and I really wanted to be solving problems with data. And so it just really starts with a small bit of interest in something that you enjoy already and seeing if you like data and going from there.
Oh, nice. So with that, I think I wanna touch on another point that we're gonna talk about is the portfolio, right? So what is the job aspect in data science or data analytics right now? Because I know that Ramona, you mentioned that it was a booming area where you first came, right? And Jackson, also even though your academics may be limited, but you got your job as an analyst. So what's your guys' thoughts on the job aspect?
Ramona, do you want to? I can go. Okay. So for me, I would encourage you guys, if you can, to find an internship right now. If you haven't already like started looking, or if you haven't put together a resume, I would definitely recommend putting together a resume first and then pushing out your resume to some companies who are looking for internships. That's my recommendation, because an internship is what landed me the entry-level analyst role. It's kind of tough, and you guys might be graduating into a tough market, but it's not impossible. Like have 1 or 2 internships, one the very least, so that you can advertise yourself saying like, hey, I've done so-and-so for this company. I can do that for you also for your future companies that you interview at. So that's my big recommendation. And then in terms of skills, I think some of you guys are comp sci students, some of you may have taken DB courses. So I think SQL, Python, the other programming languages, these are great skills to have. And so, but my biggest advice is to find an internship if you can.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how did we end up finding a job? Is that the question?
So I think, what is your thoughts on the job aspect of the market right now? Is it in demands? The data science is in demands, or I think she's cutting off again, but we'll see. All right.
I could hear you. I could hear you.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So I think the video just paused a little bit there. Maybe but yeah, just talking about the market, and um, is it a growing field like software engineering, or is it what do you think is on that aspect?
So this is a fun question, and Hubert and I have actually done a video on this on Learn Analytics, which just talks about, I went through a layoff this year due to COVID. And can you all hear me? I'm just kind
Yeah.
of confused because it says unstable. Okay. So for me, literally, networking is my best friend. Like, even if there are less jobs, and you're maybe seeing, like when I was applying, when I got laid off, I literally saw the same 10 jobs repeating every week. And what I did was I networked the hell out of those 10 jobs everywhere. So, even if you're not confident that you can convince someone that you're a good data analyst, because obviously you don't have the experience, you're currently you're currently studying. I had the same situation. I worked as a DBA, but at the end of it, I didn't have analytical experience. So I moved to the US as an international student, and I tried to prove it. And that I did all of that through a project, which I really, really liked. So again, do one project and do your best shot, because that's what you're going to use to network a lot. So I never shied away from messaging leadership on LinkedIn. Like, I would message anyone that I could find. And if there are internationals here, they probably understand this, that you have time ticking all the time. So network, but don't creep out people. First advice. Second, know your project well, because that's what you're going to talk about. Third, they do not expect you to know everything in come, because if you knew SQL really well, if you knew Python really well, if you know everything really well, you probably wouldn't be taking that job anyway. So trust yourself, have faith, find mentors who have a very similar story to you, because they're going to be able to guide you. So just, I guess these 3-4 advices, just don't be intimidated by it. You can always learn the technical skills. Like, seriously, it's all really about learning how to communicate, because that's a very, very important aspect for data science scientists and analysts. So hope that helps.
Yeah, I'll just add on to both what Jackson and Ramona said. Like, reach out, right? Networking, right? Like, don't see it as the the term networking. Like, just reach out and like seek for those mentors, right? If you want to see if data is for you, have a casual conversation. Like, Zoom makes it so much easier at this time too, right? Maybe I just want to learn a little bit what you do as a data analyst, right? And then then it actually helps you a lot when you actually go through that internship, applying for an internship, right? Because you understand, oh, that's how a data analyst looks like, right? You would have some thoughts around how this data analyst internship might look like as well, right? And then the second part that you were talking about, yeah, I think like analytics and data science have just it's just growing, and it's going to continue to grow, right? Very similar to computer science, where you have to build these applications, you have to do these softwares, right? We're going to start collecting the data behind it, right? So you can only imagine data analysts and data scientists be positions that are continued growth, because you have to use the data to see how well the platforms, the softwares are doing. So.
I see. Okay, so it takes a lot to get into the field. So which bring me to the next topic, which is about talking about the ideas or projects that the students can do. enhance their job experiences. So if you guys can give me some examples of what what kind of projects you guys did before that kind of give you an advantage over the other students or other classmates. Let's start off with Hubert. What do you have for us?
So I think first I have more like resources more than anything to start. So if people aren't familiar, feel free to jot them down. Like for example, Kaggle, right? Kaggle is a huge open source, data set. There's a lot of data there. Another good resource, maybe Jackson knows this a little bit more. I poked around here and there. University of California, Irvine, they have a data repository. You can find a lot of interesting data sets. I'm sure anyone who started like looking into data science might have looked at a data set called, I believe, the IRIS data set. So basically that data set is about, I believe, the actual different components of the flower itself. So like there's a lot of interesting data sets. I would look at Kaggle. I would look at the UC Irvine one. I would also look at different ways to just learn more about maybe intro to data, like through Udemy or through YouTube to start. So just some resources.
So I think I'm kind of interested in your projects also. Did you do any projects that did any of you guys did any projects that you guys want to talk about that are that helps you in your in your success with your career?
Yeah. So the best advice I got from a data scientist when I was studying for data science was to pick a problem that you are very interested in. And I never really understood that question until I started exploring it, because like I mentioned, I really loved fantasy basketball. I just like beating my friends at things. Like I just like beating them. And so the question I had was, what are some players that I can draft year to year that have successfully been a top 2 team, right? So I'm playing against 11 other friends. I want to be top 2 every year. And so that was my project. And the data was the past 5 years that we played together. The data helped me understand what types of players were on those top 2 winning teams every year. And so leading into the next year, I can draft those players to be on my team. I can draft those players to be my friends. And so if you have a problem that you really want to discover, it's going to get you a really cool project, and you're going to probably find very cool results that you might not want to share, or you might want to share. And for me, I was able to demonstrate to my employer right now that, hey, I am willing to get whatever data it takes. I am willing to look at the certain features or information that helps me solve this problem. You're basically identifying to your employer like, hey, I can play with data. I have the technical skills to analyze the data. I'm willing to clean data if it's dirty to solve a problem for you. And so if you can do a project that kind of demonstrates those skills, they're willing to talk to you. Also, the wackier your project. So what I mean by wacky is strange, weird, or the more interesting your project, the more willing they're looking through, thousands of resumes. If they see a really cool project, they're going to be like, hey, let's interview this guy. Let's interview this girl, because they have a really cool idea of what to like solve, or they might be someone who's just really passionate about data.
Jackson, thank you for adding the goal section. I realized how you said goal in guys, so that's nice. But I'm adding this few together itself. I'm not as organized as Hubert is, because he did it so well. But it's just a few resources. Like I recently discovered Interview Query, which is a great platform where you can practice interview questions. So I think in the case of if you're looking for product analyst roles, this is where I want to talk about it a little differently. Your projects not only matter in the sense of what data you analyze or the projects you worked on, they really want to also assess your case study related skills. Because when you're working as product analyst, you really need to have those skills as well. And I think for me, what really helped was really practicing product management case studies. But at the same time, obviously, when you're doing these projects, like one of the projects that I did, which is very relevant to what Jackson said, is try to find a problem that's relevant to you so that you will find it interesting to even take that first step. Because if you're doing this all by yourself, taking that first step is what's difficult, right? You don't want to take away your weekend doing this. You're just like, why should I do this? Why should I spend this time? What I did was I went on Kaggle and I found this data set which was related to building a prediction model to just identify how many, what variables really play a factor in you getting into a university, like what features are really important. So it was just like building that prediction model. And like being an international student, I really wanted to see like what scores really matter. So it had GRE, TOEFL, and like very random columns. And I actually finished that model. Obviously, Kaggle is there's a competition also. I didn't try to care about the competition. You don't have to. Just try to practice it out, because even in data science, there's so many resources available. This again ties down to the point that always start with the simple things first. If you go and just do the most highly difficult and complicated thing, you're never going to pick up data again. So that's what I did. I started with something very simple. And then, like I said, I had a capstone project. So that's where I got a little bit of leverage due to my master's course, through which I really got to practice a lot. But there's another community called side project. Like if that's what you're really looking for, is like you don't have projects and you want more impactful projects. On side project, you can just go and work with anyone on their project. So I do that sometimes. Like I'll just sign up for a project and be like, I would love to just analyze your user survey data, because that gives me a little background about product too. So it really depends what kind of roles are you looking for, because I think data analyst interviews are different than product, which I think is another conversation we're going to have after this. So it isn't as intimidating as it sounds. It's just playing to your strengths. And there's another community called Data Angels. If anyone wants to be a part of it, just drop me a message, because it's a Slack community only. It's for women who are looking to do more projects in data or just want to connect with other data leaders. And Medium. I feel like the Medium has amazing articles on certain projects. If you really want to follow someone's steps on how they did a project, just to like replicate it to your project, that's a great way to start. I did not notice that Medium had that when I was job hunting or just working on projects. So I would highly recommend Medium. I guess that's it. Hubert recommended quite a few things.
So nice. So I think with all the resources, I think there's plenty to go and look into, or different kind of projects you can do for data, in the data field. So with that, I want to touch on what kind of classes are you recommending? Because I know you touch a lot of database, right? Because I think database is very important in the data of course. And any classes you think you would recommend us to learn? And is it if it's even related to computer science at all?
Yeah, I think I want to add to that. What actually helped me a lot, probably from my own experience before doing the grad program, was doing a statistics minor. So taking some statistic coursework that's just about your traditional, could be some regression analysis, some intro to statistical concepts. I think that helps a lot for any analyst role. Other things, like definitely good to know some core skills like Python or Tableau, or these BI type of coursework that you might find at your school.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I'd say statistics is probably the main course I would recommend if you're interested in information or data, because a very intro to stats course is it's really friendly. It just kind of helps you understand how data analysts or scientists go about their work every day. And then I would say intro to database management is good too, because SQL is probably the number one recommended skill or required skill for both analysts and scientists in the data field. So those are the two courses I would recommend if you're even thinking about data. But yeah, those are the big ones.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm sure your university has consulting, maybe in the business school. I don't know. So I actually just enrolled into a consulting club also. That sort of really helped me with practicing case questions. Just so that it doesn't get intimidating when I actually start interviewing, because one of the main things is like, it's really true. Statistics matters so much. SQL is like number one. If you know SQL, you're pretty much halfway there. But some of the companies would also ask you to build, like, even though you have nothing to do with Python, when you start working, they will maybe ask you to build a prediction model as a part of the test. So maybe having some background about how it works, or just the basics of data science also is important. Again, case question, I actually recommend hackathons a lot as a way to start practicing some of the projects. If you don't think you have the availability for a course, why not just go ahead and enroll in a weekend hackathon and take whatever in hackathon they basically put you into teams. So you can just work on all the data stuff for them and just see how it works for you. That's again like a suggestion if you don't have the courses available.
I see. Okay. And I think as of right now, I will open it up for our Q&A sections, which I think is really important. So if you guys have any, is there anything you guys confused about based on what we have talked so far? And is there any questions you guys want to ask these data scientists or data analysts? Then feel free to drop it in the chat, or open your mic and talk. Cool. And let me see.
Also, don't feel shy. We're very kind. I know it's always intimidating because, oh my God, we're speaking here. But I was one of those people at some point who would listen to these panel discussions. So I think we're pretty nice. No question is dumb. If you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, like Ramona said, we were all once in those shoes. So we understand totally the process of school, applying for jobs, applying for internships. So
yeah, I have a question for you guys. So what brought you guys here today to this panel interview? Like, some of you probably like, should I go to Zoom? Should I not? So I guess my question for you guys is like, is it interest? Are you guys thinking about data? And then I don't know if you can drop a message in the chat to share with us like why you guys joined today. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Jack.
Well, for me, it was definitely interest. I just took, or I am still taking the big data analytics class offered at Cal Poly, and I basically fell in love with it. And so yeah, this is a field I want to get into. I just wanted to get as much information as I could.
well, hopefully this was helpful and insightful.
It definitely was. Yeah, all the resources you guys dropped, I bookmarked all of them.
Nice.
That's nice. Don't get intimidated by them because we did offer a lot and we've discovered those with time. So if you're just like, oh my God, do I need all of this? to go get there. No, it's like literally, I have now 2.5 years of experience, 3 years. So it really took that long to know so much. So just take your time. And interest is the first thing. So congratulations that you're interested in this. I think we have a question.
Yep, and that's a question I can ask also. So Killian asks, for data analyst role, what is the most important skill to learn?
So for me, at least the data analyst role, I actually say the ability to communicate is actually the most important thing. Because sure, you're gonna learn the technical skills, right? You're gonna learn how to query the data. You're gonna learn how to analyze the data. You're gonna learn how to visualize the data, right? But like the most important thing for I think any analytics professional, it's really how do you present the data to the different stakeholders, right? It could be a product manager, it could be a program manager, it could be someone else on the operations or engineering team. But like I think the most important part is how do you communicate in a way that they're gonna take an action on it. So I would actually say communication. So.
I would say Microsoft Excel is a very underrated tool. Just being able to create, visualizations, being able to clean your columns within Microsoft Excel is actually a very underrated skill. If you know SQL, all the better. You're probably ahead of the game if you have a grip on SQL. And then I would say one course I didn't expect to be very useful. It wasn't a course, but my workplace had a public speaking course, or just the way to control your tone and like, because when I was in college, I wasn't shy, but I was very monotone. I would talk like this and I would bore you to death. And so I had to take a public speaking course to control my rhythm and kind of present ideas. And so to piggyback off of Hubert's idea, if you do something really cool with data, but you can't explain it, people might get bored of you or they might not understand what you're trying to say. So to answer your question for a data analyst role, you do need to understand how to manipulate data with SQL or Excel, but you also have to present that and make something like really convincing for someone to take action on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like storytelling skills are so important, and it's okay if you're not great at it, or if you think you're great at it, you'll be surprised when you join workforce. But you'll always get feedback on it. I think initially I did get a feedback on a lot of like, oh, I create these amazing visualizations. I do think knowing a visualization tool now is definitely become important too, like apart from like just knowing SQL, because you'll be building those visualizations through SQL anyway. So maybe knowing one tool really helps. But yeah, telling a story through that is so important, and especially always connecting to the business side of it through your story. That relation is something that you have to make. And that's what really is the interesting part of the job. I think when you're able to successfully build that relation, and it takes time. Communication, storytelling, prioritization is also something very important, because you'll have like 10 different stakeholders asking you for questions. If you're working in a startup or a medium-sized company, which has maybe only one data team with 2-3 people, you might be getting a lot of stakeholder requests from different people. So it's important to really understand. I think it's really taught me how to be more assertive and let people know about my priorities, as to which is more important for the business at the moment. So if you think about it, like all three of us just talked about how these non-technical skills are so important. I mean, tech is also important, but you can always learn it. I learned a lot through my jobs. So yeah.
Cool.
I was also curious, since you guys bring up SQL so much, my professor for my big data class had us also learn NoSQL databases such as like MongoDB and Neo4j. So I was just curious, like how are businesses like becoming aware of those and like transitioning to them at all?
Yeah, I would say it's not about the language, Zach. It's really about the logic. So it's thinking about, oh, like with SQL and NoSQL, what something you probably noticed was that the idea was the same, right? You're just typing it differently. And so I would say if you have the logic part down, if you understand how to grab specific data and simply you're just transitioning between Neo4j, NoSQL, and SQL, like you're just typing it differently. And so something you'll find out about the big data industry is that they're always going to have some sort of different, like new up and coming language that spouts up and you're like, now I got to learn that. But the thing is, like, you're going to have that logic, the thought process behind it. So don't stress out about additional languages you'll have to learn, but think more so about, do I grasp the concept? If I have that down, then honestly, Zach, you can learn anything.
Yeah, I think it's so similar to computer science. I mean, it's like if you know the algorithm, you can just apply it anywhere. It's just, do you know the logic? So I think that was pretty well said. I don't have anything to add to it.
Yeah, Zach, just one thing to add to that one. I think it depends on, like, most of my experience have always been in the more traditional database stuff, right? I think some companies adopt, NoSQL. Maybe some companies do both. I'm not really sure actually, but it seems like it depends on the company. It depends. I can see why some companies do it. Like maybe because of like the database architecture around it. Maybe they have some pros to using this versus that, but I still see, currently more traditional database.
Yeah, something you're going to get in your interviews is that you're always going to get SQL. Like, I guarantee it. Like, every interview that I also got laid off and I had to do a bunch of job hunting myself, and they always ask me SQL. And to tell you a little secret, so long as you understand how to logically solve the problem, the person interviewing you will see that and be like, okay, like, he understands it, he gets it. And that's really what they're going to like say is going to decide whether they hire you or not. It's really that.
Yeah. Walking through your problem is so important. Through your solution. Like, even if you don't have it accurate, it's so important to know, like, what steps did you take and just what was the logic behind it, because you really can't know everything before you join. There's just, SQL is so much practice oriented. I don't think I learned this, like, SQL as well as I learned on job compared to what I did in my undergrad. I feel like it was, smaller data sets, different, circumstances. I probably didn't relate to the business model as such because it's just the university at the moment. So you learn a lot, you pick up a lot when you start working, and they know it. So.
And I'm sorry to disturb, but I think we want to touch on, there's some other questions that I want to ask you guys too. So Kayla asked, what is the most difficult part of your job?
I think upskilling sometimes so I recently had this thing where I was trying to, work on website data and just like did a bunch of analysis, and different people give you different feedback. And sometimes it's like you have to sort of go research yourself to see which is the best way to move forward, and then be assertive with the way that you've taken. I am I come from a background which I say yes a lot. So now I've come to just, as a data analyst, like, you're really the decision maker a lot of the times. and you have to learn to say no, or you have to learn to give evidence to why you're not doing it this way versus this way. So I think really it's like communicating well with the stakeholders can be sometimes difficult because they have a different idea behind it and you're kind of crushing that idea. So it's really about like, how do you gain that trust once you, like, I joined a new company right now. I feel like the first step is really about doing a lot of communication and gaining that trust, and then moving one step at a time. But yeah, I guess at the same time, upskilling and stakeholder communication together is like, makes it sometimes difficult, but you'll get through it.
Yeah, I'll echo the same part, like working with your stakeholders and have a good relationship in a way that they would also be a champion of data, right? Because you want to, a lot of companies, if you join a really early startup, the data culture is very important. You join that company, you might be the first two or maybe 2 or 3 people, but being in a startup, they want to move fast, right? And not every decision could be back. You don't have the right data, or you don't have those decisions. They just want to make them, right? But a lot of them can end up being actually very costly. But echoing that, it's figuring out the priorities with your stakeholders, and then making sure that they are also a champion for data decisions. So.
Yeah, I'm with them. Like, the most difficult and most fun part is just, you're always going to be faced with a problem. I think every day you're going to have something different maybe, and you're always going to be solving something different. Next year, you might need to learn a new language to solve a different problem. So the cool thing about data and analytics is that you're always going to be learning something cool, and you're always going to be solving like very interesting problems. But it is difficult, to answer the question.
I see. Okay. Well, I think another, not last but not least questions is, for someone who wants to make a beginner project or intermediate project, focus on data analysis. I think based on what you guys worked on, and based on, what we've talked so far, what kind of framework would you suggest us trying out and experimenting with?
I guess I'm confused with the framework point. What do you really mean by that? It's just like, what process should I go forward with if I'm thinking about doing a project? Is that what?
My interpretation of the question is like a structure. Like, how do we go about doing a project from beginning to end?
I guess first get data. That's the most important part. And I think the next will just follow. Like, if you have data, you're looking at it, what you have to do is really analyze it. Like, ask yourself questions about that data. Like, if you're the only person working on it, like, that's why I think, Kaggle is a great point, because it gives you the problem with the data set. So you can try out different things. But if you already have a data set and what you want to really do is analyze it, that means you already have that interest. Ask yourself some questions. Just pick 3-4 columns. Just try to understand how this looks like. Start with the most simple things. Just do counts, and then kind of go forward. If you're trying to maybe build a model through it, then that means you have to do a lot of exploratory analysis, clean, and Jackson, I'll let you talk about it. I probably messed it up, but yeah.
Catan or Kitan. I would always start with a problem or a question that you want to solve. That's number 1. Ask a question. 2, get the data. And then 3, analyze the data. And then 4, present the solution. So that's the step-by-step in which I would take. Yeah, I'll type it in here, but I want it to be straightforward.
Yeah, just like Jackson said, actually there is something, I believe, like the data cycle or data analytics framework. It's basically, it starts with the business question and then goes to grabbing the data, right? You ask like, what is the data that you need to answer that business question? And then it goes to cleaning, manipulating, and then analyzing it, visualizing it. And then a lot of times it might even be an iteration of the entire cycle. So I think that could be something to look at if you're thinking about framework.
Yeah, and I feel like the most important aspect, which people feel like they get drained by the end of just analyzing data, but really the most important is presenting it. Whatever processes you do, like people are not necessarily going to care as much about, oh, you know, this is the amount of time you spent on doing this. What they're really going to care about is how you presented it. So yeah, focus a lot on that too.
All right. Cool. So I think we'll reach the end of the sections now, and thank you so much for having having us or speaking to us, Hubert, Jackson, and Ramona. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to message me, and I will send it forward to all of the three candidates here. And yeah, thank you so much for speaking with us. We are really have some really insightful information today.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't be shy. I mean, I don't know how Hubert and Ramona feel about this, but you just reach out to us on LinkedIn if you want to as well. Don't be shy. If you don't have an account, I encourage you to make a LinkedIn account.
Same.
All
And
right.
just want to add one more thing. Like, firstly, thank you so much for having me. Second, yeah, please reach out if you want to. Third, it doesn't really have to be only about data. I do love talking about diversity and inclusion efforts and all of the other things I'm doing apart from that. So yeah, just feel free to reach out about anything. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you guys on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.